Well, hey, it's Brad. The 2024 bow season in Iowa has now closed, and we are on to the 2025 habitat season. It is an absolutely gorgeous day here in south central Iowa. It is the middle of January. The last time I checked, it was 48 degrees. The sun is shining, as you can probably tell, and the wind is pretty minimal. We'll take it. Matter of fact, in a few days, we're gonna be down 50 degrees from where we are at this point. So we're gonna do everything we can to get outside right now. So I know it's been a while since I've posted, and so the video we're about to go into is going to be broken up into two parts. And we're going to look at in this video, we're going to look at a review of my bow season and look at all the things that took place just to kind of get you caught up. And then in part two, we're going to look at a preview of the projects or some of the major projects I'm going to be working on the property coming up in this year. So let's get into it. In this episode, we're going to focus on a review of my 2024 bow hunting season. And I have three primary goals that I had going into this season. Number one is I wanted to harvest a mature buck. Now, by mature, I mean a deer that is at least 4 years old, but ideally 5 years old or older. That's where they maximize their antler growth. And in this area, that is not something that is unreasonable to expect. So that was number one. Number two, I wanted to harvest a number of does primarily at our home property in order to bring down the total number of deer in the area. And number three is I wanted to begin to self-film all of my hunts. And that was a process that I had never done before, so that's what I was going to be working on going into this season. Now, before we look at each of these three goals, there's always some unexpected things that happen during a hunting season. And sometimes there are variables beyond your control, whether it's the weather or it's something that happens in your personal life, or maybe some things change on your hunting ground or whatever. But for me, if you've been following, my biggest unexpected situation was when I had my arm fracture on October 27th of this year after I was trying to sneak out of my hunting stand. And that set the table for the remainder of my bow hunting season. That really turned out to be my best ever. All right, let's jump into those top three goals. And our number one goal, of course, was to harvest a mature buck. And we definitely checked that box. This tall-tine 14-point bruiser was following a doe into one of my hidden food plots. My biggest buck to date ended up measuring 165 inches. Now that's short of the 170 I was hoping for, but I'm 100% happy with this buck. I really wasn't concerned about the actual size of the buck, but it's just gonna be nice to kind of compare as we go forward. Now, there were several other bucks besides this one on the hit list, including that big buck that led to my poor decision of navigating in the darkness. Now, for those following my channel, you know my first pursuit was actually at the home property. An impressive buck I called the drone buck lived in the agricultural field not far from our home property food plot. Despite several night visits in early November, I didn't lay eyes on him in the daylight at all. So we never really got a crack at him. Hopefully he made it through this season. All right, goal number two, doe management. Now, I failed on this one, but it wasn't for the lack of opportunities. My goal was to focus the early season at the home property to help reduce the number of deer at our property because of the browse pressure on all of our young trees. Now, my home property plans disappointed despite a really good food plot coming up this year. I competed with the neighbor's cattle, which deer tend to avoid, I've found. My only real opportunity was that fawn that I think was born in the wood line next to us and was kind of hanging around, but wasn't really interested in taking a deer of that size anyway. Now, later in the season, after the cattle left, I dealt with a different type of competition. They were laying fiber optic lines that they were wanting to install underground. Now, that's fantastic news for increased internet speed, but the timing with the equipment was not ideal, and I don't know if that had any impact on the deer's movement, but it certainly didn't help. So when I decided to switch my focus to the property, I messed up my best opportunity at a mature doe because I produced way too much movement when I had an opportunity to shoot this doe coming into one of my micro food plots. And that was all on me. So I actually had several other opportunities later in the year, but I elected not to shoot any of those does, primarily because I wanted to make sure that I wasn't disturbing the pattern or the area to recover a deer when we're that close to the rut. And to be honest with you, I'm really confident that it paid off. So my third goal this year was to self-film all of my hunts. And this was definitely a learning curve for me. First of all, I had to learn to use my equipment. I had to get used to it. I had to learn all the ins and outs and what it was capable of. And I had multiple cameras that I was working on. So, the first thing I had to learn was how to use that camera arm, much different than what I'm doing right now. It had to be mobile, had to transport the things up and down, adding the time, all those things that you have to recalculate some of the ways in which you hunt. So I had to go through those things. And the next thing is I had to learn the angles and the movements and what that did to what my visibility was to the deer. And really that was a whole learning curve and really changed how I went about my hunting process. So next I was using multiple cameras to get different viewpoints. So I had to understand or learn what these cameras are focused in on and how to make sure that I wasn't getting overwhelmed with all the things that were going on. So really with placement and all those things. So again, a learning curve there as well. So as the season went on, I got better at being able to film with deer that I wasn't planning on shooting, able to focus better, follow their movements, all the things associated with providing the kind of content that I would love to provide to every single video. The challenge was when I was planning on taking a shot at a deer, I had to do multiple things. So I'm focused on recording, I'm focused on making sure that I didn't have too much movement, drawing back my bow, all the different things associated with a successful and ethical harvest. And it was really a challenge. So definitely have to get better at that. Doesn't mean that the pressure is going to change, but obviously I missed that doe, as you have seen probably before, because of my movement. And when I had a chance at my buck, I literally decided not to touch the camera. Now it was a little bit different because I was in a ground blind and I really didn't have the ability to maneuver the way that I really wanted to, especially with a crossbow versus a compound bow. But regardless, I was willing to sacrifice the focus of the deer moving and not able to focus the way I think I would really love to, versus missing out on an opportunity to take this big buck. So anyway, those were obviously opportunities for me to learn. I don't know if I'm going to be better or worse next season, but definitely had an opportunity to learn some things along the way. So in summary, this year I had what I would describe as my very best year. Despite a severe arm fracture, I'm still dealing with the consequences of that, still trying to get my strength up and all those associated things. And I need to make sure that I don't push myself too far yet until I have my full strength back. But getting the biggest buck I've ever had, not only on camera, but also being able to successfully harvest that and all the associated things. Super excited by that. But just really enjoying the outcome of all the habitat work that we've been doing here at this property, and even at the home property. Even though we didn't have the success that I was hoping there, we did draw in that big drone buck and a couple other deer. They just didn't actually come during the day. So we're going to work on some maybe different strategies for next year. But you always have to improve. Learn from what happened. I'm learning from some of the things that I would have done differently, and number one is I'm going to be a lot more safe next year. But really had an awesome year this year. I really enjoyed having the opportunity to come out and see the fruits of all the investment of time, labor, and energy we've put out here at the property. Hey, thanks for joining us. I really appreciate you stopping by. Make sure you check out our next episode where we do a preview of all the work we're going to do for this coming year, what we've learned from this year, and we're going to integrate the things we've learned and hopefully make next year our very best year. Hey, thanks for stopping by, and I appreciate you watching Brad Work.